Welcome to Seeking History. Today, we're diving into a city that, well, it feels like it just sprang out of the desert, built on maybe a dream and definitely a roll of the dice.
Right. It's this place everyone knows, synonymous with blinding lights, endless entertainment, constant change.
Exactly. And just to kick us off with something that captures its unique flavor, how about this? Did you know that iconic Welcome to Fabulous Las Vegas sign, it's actually not in Las Vegas city limits?
That's right. It's technically in Paradise, Nevada,
Yeah.
an unincorporated town right next door.
Which is just perfect, isn't it? It points to this whole theme in Vegas history. Things aren't always what they seem. There's this strategic shaping of image, and, well, the reality is often a bit different from the shimmer.
Absolutely. So
Oh.
today, we're looking at Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Sin City, the entertainment capital of the world. It's this incredible story of human ambition, frankly, just carving out a major city where logically maybe one shouldn't be.
And our goal here is to trace that whole wild evolution. How did it go from basically a watering hole in the desert, a dusty railroad stop, to this global phenomenon?
We'll be looking at it from all sorts of angles. The big historical moments, sure, but also the social shifts, the unique sociology of the place, the economic engines, the business innovations.
And yeah, some of the just plain weird and fascinating facts that make Vegas, well, Vegas.
So whether you've seen it in movies, maybe walk the strip yourself, or you're just curious how such a place even happened, join us as we seek the history of Las Vegas.
Okay, let's start way back. Before the neon, before the casinos, even before the railroad. The Las Vegas Valley itself, it was important simply because it had water in the middle of the Mojave Desert.
Right. Thanks to natural springs. And we have archaeological evidence, things like petroglyphs, suggesting nomadic Paleo-Indians were using this area maybe 10,000 years ago. They knew where the water was.
And then for at least, 2,000 years, it was home to Native American groups?
Yeah, people like the ancient Pueblones and definitely various Paiute tribes, they understood the valley's life source was these springs. Finds near the old Mormon fort site pottery, tools they conserve this long history. The springs were everything.
They fed a creek, created these unexpected green meadows.
Which is where the name comes from, right? Las Vegas, Spanish for the meadows.
It's incredible how that early dependence on water, it just echoes through the city's entire history.
Right.
Resource management, dealing with the desert environment, it's baked in from the start.
It really is a fundamental challenge.
So, indigenous people knew about the springs for millennia. The first non-native encounter we have documented is from a Spanish trading party in 1829.
Right, led by Antonio Armijo. They were on the old Spanish Trail, this long haul between Santa Fe and Los Angeles.
And the story goes, it was a young Mexican scout in that group, Rafael Rivera, who first stumbled upon these specific meadows.
And that discovery led directly to the name Las Vegas. And pretty much immediately it became a crucial stopping point on that trail.
Makes sense. A place to rest, get water. Essential for travelers, traders, and especially later, the gold prospectors heading west.
It got more attention in the U.S. after the explorer John C. Fremont camped there in 1844. His writings helped put it on the map for American pioneers. Of course, this was still Mexican territory at the time.
So the early identity is all about being an oasis, a transit point, tied to the land and the route.
Which leads us naturally to the first real attempt at formal settlement by Americans, or at least non-indigenous people. After the Mexican-American War, the area became part of the U.S.
And the Mormon Church, headquartered up in Salt Lake City, saw the strategic value.
Exactly. They needed a halfway point, basically, on the route to their settlements in Southern California. A place for supplies, for rest.
So in 1855, they sent a group down.
Yeah, about 30 missionaries led by William Bringhurst. And they actually worked with the local Paiute people, who obviously knew the land, to build a pretty substantial fort, adobe, 150-foot square, near the creek.
And parts of it are still there, the old Las Vegas Mormon Fort State Historic Park.
It's amazing, isn't it? They tried irrigating, they even tried mining lead nearby for the church.
Yeah.
But
the desert pushed back.
pretty much. The farming was tough, the mining didn't pan out as hoped, and there was apparently some internal squabbling, too. By early 1857, less than 2 years in, they abandoned it.
And that failure is kind of important, isn't it? It showed that just trying to replicate traditional settlement patterns wasn't going to work here. Vegas needed something different.
Absolutely. A different economic driver was needed. But the fort structure itself didn't disappear.
Right. It got reused first as a store, then a ranch.
Yeah, a guy named Octavius Decatur Gass bought the site in 1865. turned it into Las Vegas Rancho. He supplied miners, travelers, was even involved in territorial politics for Arizona before Nevada was formed there.
But he lost it eventually.
Yes, over a debt in 1881 to Archibald Stewart. Archibald died not long after, but his wife, Helen J. Stewart, took over.
And she ran the place successfully for nearly 20 years. She's known as the First Lady of Las Vegas.
A really key figure, and she made the deal that changed everything. In 1902, she sold the ranch land, crucially, including the water rights and the area that would become downtown, to the railroad.
Senator William Andrews Clark's Railroad.
San Pedro, Los Angeles, and Salt Lake Railroad. This was the big shift. The value wasn't ranching anymore. It was location, location, location for transport and commerce. That sale set the stage for the city itself.
So the railroad's arrival was the real catalyst for the town of Las Vegas.
Without a doubt, Senator Clark's railroad needed a division point, a place for maintenance, refueling, crew changes, right there in the middle of the desert route.
And they basically created the town to serve that need. May 15th, 1905, the big land auction.
Yep, that's the date everyone points to as the official founding. The railroad auctioned off 110 acres next to the tracks. They laid out the streets, including Fremont Street, the original heart of the city.
Development was modest at first. The city was officially incorporated in March 1911. You had the first church, and interestingly, the first hotel casino pretty early on.
The Hotel Nevada, opened around 1905, 1906. It later became the Golden Gate, which is still there today, amazingly.
But the railroad was the town's whole reason for being initially. Jobs, connection to the outside world.
It was built for transit and commerce from the get-go, always tied to these bigger economic forces.
And even then, you see that tension with the environment. People wanted a green oasis, but the desert reality hit hard.
Water was everything, drawn from springs and wells. But almost immediately, the Las Vegas Wash, that natural creek, started being used as a dump.
Yeah, wastewater, trash. It took decades until the 2000s for major cleanup efforts.
It's a classic tragedy of the commons right there at the start. Development versus environmental limits, a theme that never really goes away in Vegas, especially with water.
And the economy saw some bumps. Nevada actually outlawed gambling in 1910.
Yeah, the last western state to do it, interestingly. But the railroad kept the town going for a while.
Until things got rocky. A smaller railroad went bankrupt, then a big national railroad strike in 1922.
Right, those hit Las Vegas hard. Left the town in a pretty desperate spot economically. It needed something big to turn things around.
And that something big arrived in, well, a cluster of big things, all in one year, 1931.
A truly pivotal year. 3 major developments converged that completely reshaped Las Vegas and, remarkably, helped it weather the Great Depression better than many places.
First, the Hoover Dam.
Yep, but construction started in '31 on what was initially called the Boulder Dam project. Massive federal undertaking. Tame the Colorado River, stop floods, generate power, provide water for irrigation. Just enormous.
And during the Depression, the promise of work drew people from all over. How many workers came?
Over 20,000 people flocked to the area seeking jobs. Absolutely swamped the little town of Las Vegas, which only had about 5,000 residents then.
So Vegas suddenly becomes this service hub for this huge workforce.
Exactly. Restaurants, bars, entertainment. But the work itself was brutal. Extreme heat, dangerous conditions.
Over 120 degrees Fahrenheit sometimes.
Easily. Heat exhaustion was rampant. Officially, 96 deaths were directly tied to construction, but the real number was probably higher. The government even built Boulder City nearby, a separate controlled town for the workers, partly to keep them away from Vegas's temptations.
Beyond the immediate jobs, the dam's long-term impact was huge, right? Power for industry, water for farming across the Southwest.
Absolutely transformative for the whole region, Nevada, California, Arizona. But it's crucial to remember the cost, too. Lake Mead, the reservoir it created, flooded sacred Native American sites, displaced communities. Development always has trade-offs.
Okay, second big thing in 1931. March 19th, the state legalized casino gambling again.
Reversed the 1910 ban, the main driver. Pure economic desperation. Nevada's traditional industries, silver mining, ranching, were tanking in the Depression. Gambling was seen as a way to lure tourists and get some tax revenue flying.
Figures like George Wingfield, a Reno banker, and a Vegas real estate guy, Thomas Carroll, pushed for it.
And there was this pragmatic side, too. Illegal gambling was happening anyway, hard to stop. So the thinking was, might as well regulate it and tax it. It passed pretty easily. Initially, licensing was local, fees were low.
But it wasn't an instant boom, was it?
No. Surprisingly, the immediate impact was kind of underwhelming. The illegal operators didn't rush to go legit. And Vegas was much more focused on the immediate economic activity from the thousands of dam workers. It showed legalization alone wasn't enough. You needed the investment and the resort concept later on.
And the third piece of the 1931 puzzle, signed the same day as the gambling bill, liberalized divorce laws.
Seems unrelated, but it was a huge windfall. They slashed the residency requirement to get a divorce down to just 6 weeks.
Which was way faster than anywhere else.
Exactly. So Nevada, and Las Vegas in particular, became the divorce capital. People, including celebrities and the wealthy, flocked there, stayed there 6 weeks in dude ranches or hotels, got their quick divorce, and left.
And that actually had a bigger immediate economic impact than gambling for the first few years.
For about the first 5 years, yes. It drove development of accommodations, services. It brought in consistent, relatively affluent visitors.
So 1931, you get this perfect storm.
Yeah.
The dam brings people and infrastructure. Gambling opens a new door, even if slowly. And easy divorce brings immediate tourist traffic. What a combination.
A unique stimulus package, really, that helped Nevada and Vegas navigate the Depression and set it on a very different path.
After the dam was finished in 35, things kept evolving. Vegas got Hoover Dam power in 37.
Which really lit up Fremont Street, making it glitter gulch.
The dam itself and Lake Mead became tourist draws. Need for better hotels.
And better roads. US 95 was extended in 1940, giving the city 2 major highway routes. Even got its own radio station, Kino, in 1940. The pieces were falling into place.
Then came World War II, which brought another major influence, the military.
A huge, lasting presence. In January 41, the Army set up a gunnery school. That base eventually became Nellis Air Force Base, still a massive installation and employer today.
And the military presence had social effects, too, like on prostitution.
Yeah, the Army wasn't thrilled about the legal prostitution in Block 16 downtown.
Yeah.
Pressure from them led the city to outlaw within city limits in 1942. Block 16 shut down.
But 1941 also saw the birth of the Strip, essentially. El Rancho Vegas opened.
Thomas Hull's place, April 3rd, 41.
Yeah.
Out on Highway 91 south of town. That's considered the first resort on what became the Strip. Bungalows, known for its buffet.
Yeah.
It set a pattern. The Hotel Last Frontier opened nearby in 42, starting that sprawl away from downtown.
So the war ends, and Vegas is ready to explode. And the fuel for that explosion, according to the sources, was largely organized crime money.
No question. The mob saw a golden opportunity. Legal gambling in Nevada, while their illegal operations elsewhere faced crackdowns. Las Vegas became a prime target for investment.
An open city, they called it.
Yeah, this idea that different mob families from New York, Chicago, Cleveland, wherever, could potentially invest there without immediate bloody turf wars. A neutral ground, relatively speaking.
And they poured money into building these flashy new casino resorts along Highway 91, the future Strip, capitalizing on the location, the workforce from the dam.
Figures like Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky are central here. Lansky was apparently the strategic thinker, pushing the mob towards legitimate gambling ventures.
And he sent Siegel to Vegas to oversee the Flamingo Project.
Which was actually started by someone else, William Wilkerson, a Hollywood guy. But he ran out of money. Siegel, backed by Lansky and others, took over.
And Siegel had expensive tastes. The budget skyrocketed.
Oh yeah, from maybe $1 million to supposedly $6 million. He named it after his girlfriend, Virginia Hill, nicknamed Flamingo.
The opening was rough, December 46. Just the casino, lost money fast. But then it reopened properly in March 47.
And that version, the full hotel and casino, set a new standard for luxury, for glamour. It showed the potential.
But Siegel didn't get to enjoy it for long. Murdered in Beverly Hills, June 47.
Still officially unsolved, but the consensus is his partners ordered the hit.
Okay.
Cost overruns, maybe skimming profits. They weren't happy.
But the Flamingo, despite the drama, proved the concept. Lavish resorts could work.
And that opened the floodgates. You got the Desert Inn in 50, backed by Modalitz and the Cleveland outfit. The Sahara, the Sands, both in 52, the Riviera in 55, big money flowing in.
Often through complicated routes, right? Insurance companies, the Teamsters Pension Fund.
Exactly. American National Insurance, and especially the Teamsters Central States Pension Fund. Alan Dorfman, connected to the Chicago outfit, Jimmy Hoffa. This was serious financing, enabling massive construction.
And these places weren't just casinos. They had luxury rooms, fine dining, pools, and crucially, big-name entertainment, creating the whole package.
And the mob's influence wasn't just financial, it was political too. The city of Las Vegas wanted to annex the booming Strip to get those tax dollars.
But the casino interests outsmarted them.
In 1950, yeah. They moved quickly and got the Strip area registered as a separate, unincorporated town. paradise.
Brilliant. Kept the casinos out of city jurisdiction, under Clark County control, which they presumably found easier to manage.
A masterstroke, really. And that division between the city and the Strip in paradise still exists today, shaping everything from taxes to services. Shows the mob's power wasn't just brute force, it was strategy.
It's such a paradox, isn't it? These underworld figures were essentially the venture capitalists who built modern Las Vegas. They had the money, the nerve.
They took the risk on a completely unproven industry in the middle of nowhere and created the extravagant model we still see traces of.
But all this mob activity attracted federal attention. The Kefauver hearings in 1950.
Right. Senator Estes Kefauver's committee investigating organized crime. They held hearings right there in Las Vegas, bringing in casino bosses like Mo Sedway, even the lieutenant governor.
And the hearings basically confirmed what everyone suspected. Mob money was everywhere, skimming profits, pulling strings.
Huge amounts of cash.
Yeah.
There was talk of federal gambling controls, but Nevada Senator Pat McCarran managed to block it.
And ironically, the national spotlight from Kefauver, combined with Vegas pushing its image through media connections, it actually helped Vegas.
In a way, yes. It cemented Vegas as the place for illegal gambling, while helping to shut down illegal operations elsewhere. All that attention, all that business, started flowing more towards Nevada.
So the mob built it, profited hugely, but also inadvertently set the stage for tighter controls and their own eventual decline. Wild.
Adding to the sheer weirdness of Vegas in the 50s and early 60s, they had front row seats to the atomic age.
Right. Nuclear testing just 65 miles away at the Nevada test site starting in 51. Atmospheric tests, big mushroom clouds visible from town.
And Vegas being Vegas, they turned it into a tourist attraction.
Unbelievable. Advertising the blasts, atomic cocktails, viewing parties from hotel rooftops like the Desert Inn's Sky Room.
They even called it Atomic City, had Miss Atomic beauty pageants. Just embracing the mushroom cloud as a spectacle. It's surreal to think about now.
People definitely felt it, though. Windows rattling, lights flickering from the shock waves.
It also brought another wave of federal jobs, people working for the Atomic Energy Commission. And crucially, around this time, you had the Bank of Las Vegas, run by Mormons like E. Perry Thomas, becoming the first major bank willing to lend directly to casinos. That was huge for financing growth, when traditional banks wouldn't touch them.
The atmospheric tests stopped with the treaty in 63, went underground after that. Last test was 92.
Though there were other sites, too, like Project Faultless further north, deep underground tests. And there are still those rumors about a secret atomic bunker somewhere under the valley.
Just another layer of strangeness. Cold War anxiety mixed with tourism and mob money.
And amidst all this glitz and strangeness, we have to talk about segregation. Early Las Vegas was deeply divided racially.
Yeah, black performers could star on the strip stages, but they often couldn't stay in the hotels, eat in the restaurants, or gamble in the casinos they performed in.
It was blatant. Black residents and businesses were largely confined to West Las Vegas due to discriminatory housing practices and city codes. Job opportunities in the casinos for black and Hispanic workers were mostly limited to back-of-house roles.
But there were attempts to change things. Some mob figures saw it wasn't good for business.
There were interesting dynamics. Some owners, perhaps because they faced discrimination themselves as Italians or Jews, were more open. The Moulin Rouge Hotel, opened in 1955, was a landmark attempt.
The first integrated casino hotel. Huge deal. Hosted all the big black stars, welcomed everyone.
It was revolutionary, featured on the cover of Life magazine. But sadly, it closed within about a year and a half due to financial issues and owner disputes. Still, it showed what was possible.
And entertainers themselves pushed back hard. Sinatra and the Rat Pack.
Huge influence there. The famous story is Sinatra refusing to play the Sands unless Sammy Davis Jr. could get a room there.
And they pulled that kind of thing elsewhere, too, using their star power.
Absolutely. Leveraging their contracts, demanding policy changes, their camaraderie and willingness to stand up for Sammy made a real difference in chipping away at those barriers on the Strip.
But full desegregation needed more than stars. It needed political action.
Right. In 1960, the local NAACP, led by figures like James B. McMillan, threatened a major protest march on the Strip.
That got the owner's attention.
It did. Led to a tense late-night meeting. NAACP leaders, Mayor Orrin Gregson, key casino figures, they hammered out an agreement to start desegregating, beginning with employees, then patrons. Activists like Grant Sawyer, Bob Bailey, Charles Keller were crucial too.
And Mayor Gregson, the longest-serving mayor, seems to have played a really positive role.
By many accounts, yes. hired black city employees, held meetings in West Las Vegas, pushed for infrastructure improvements there, supported the NAACP, even helped the local Paiute tribe fight eviction. He seems to have been a key figure in navigating that difficult transition.
So it was a mix of grassroots activism, celebrity pressure, political leadership, eventually leading to laws aligning with the national civil rights movement. But not always smooth.
No, there were challenges. Reports of violence during school integration at Clark High, some white flight from neighborhoods. It was a complex and sometimes fraught process.
Yet through all this social upheaval, the city just kept growing at an incredible rate, doubling its population decade after decade, pretty much.
Astonishing growth, right up until the 2008 recession. And it really took off after 1990, fueled by migration from other states and abroad. By the mid-2000s, it was the biggest U.S. city founded in the 20th century. Just explosive expansion.
And that expansion in the latter half of the century brought another massive shift, the move away from mob control towards corporate ownership.
And the unlikely figure at the center of that transition, almost by accident, was Howard Hughes.
The billionaire recluse arrived in '66, stayed in the Desert Inn penthouse.
Until they asked him to leave. So what does Howard Hughes do? He buys the hotel, 1967, for about $13 million.
And that was just the start. He went on a buying spree.
Unprecedented. Bought the Sands, Frontier, Castaways, Landmark, Silver Slipper. Huge land parcels, too. Spent something like $65 million in a year. Controlled maybe a third of the Strip's revenue. Only stopped when the government threatened an anti-monopoly suit.
His presence alone changed the perception of Vegas, didn't it? This famous, albeit weird, businessman investing huge sums.
It lent legitimacy. Politicians loved it, promoted it as Hughes pushing the mob out. The public saw Hughes as this eccentric hero figure, so Vegas started looking a bit more respectable, less purely mob-run.
And because Hughes hated appearing in public, he refused to go through the usual gaming license process.
Exactly. He wouldn't show up for the background checks. So Nevada officials, Governor Laxalt included, basically changed the law for him. The Corporate Gaming Act of 1969.
That was the game changer. It allowed publicly traded companies to get licenses without every single shareholder being vetted.
Opened the floodgates for corporate America. Wall Street money could now flow into casinos easily.
But ironically, Hughes himself wasn't great at running casinos.
Not really. His companies lacked the specialized experience. Reports say the existing managers, some still with mob ties, continued skimming millions right under his nose.
So he wasn't the mob buster in practice, but his presence forced the legal change that allowed corporations to take over, an accidental bridge.
Pretty much. His fame, plus the law change, made casino ownership attractive to legitimate corporations. And by the late 70s, 80s, with tighter regulation, corporate ownership became the norm, pushing out most of the remaining mob influence to more professionalism, accountability.
And we get that great story about him demanding Baskin-Robbins banana nut ice cream, then changing his mind, leaving the Desert Inn, swimming in it.
A perfect Hughes anecdote shows the eccentricity of the man who inadvertently helped usher in the corporate era. And that corporate control really allowed Vegas to double down on being the entertainment capital.
The entertainment story is so key. Early days had lounge acts, but then the Rat Pack defined an era.
Late 50s, 60s, Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Peter Lawford, Joey Bishop, filming Ocean's 11, doing impromptu shows at the Sands Copa Room, just oozing cool.
Music, comedy, banter, pure glamour. They put Vegas on the map for a certain kind of sophisticated fun.
Drew the high rollers, defined Vegas cool, became icons of the city, and like we said, pushed for integration too.
After them came the era of the resident headliner, Elvis's comeback in '69 at the International.
Monumental. Sold out hundreds of shows consecutively. Sinatra had key residencies earlier. Liberace became Mr. Showmanship, totally synonymous with Vegas. They solidified Vegas as the place for live performance. Then the mega resorts, starting in the late 80s, built these huge custom theaters.
Paving the way for Cirque du Soleil in the 90s. That was a revolution.
Absolutely. Mystère at Treasure Island in '93. Completely new kind of spectacle, acrobatics, artistry, incredible staging.
Shows like O at Bellagio, Seika at MGM Grand just redefined what a Vegas show could be. Huge international draw.
Became synonymous with that new era of extravagance. And the evolution continues. The 2000s saw the revitalization of headliner residencies, but with global pop stars.
Celine Dion's residency at Caesars was massively successful. Britney Spears, Elton John, Lady Gaga, Usher, bringing in new, younger audiences.
And it diversified beyond shows. Nightclubs and day clubs became enormous profit centers. Hakkasan, XS, Omnia, featuring the world's biggest DJs.
Plus major music festivals, EDC, Life is Beautiful, drawing massive crowds, and local bands like The Killers and Imagine Dragons broke out globally from Vegas.
It's this constant adaptation. You see the shift towards branded, scalable entertainment products, mirroring the corporate influence.
But also embracing things like DJ culture and festivals to stay relevant for younger generations, always reinventing the entertainment mix.
Which brings us to modern Las Vegas, really focused on that reinvention and diversifying beyond just gambling, kicked off by the mega resort era.
Steve Wynn's Mirage in '89, that set the template. Financed with junk bonds, which was new. Over 3,000 rooms, that volcano out front. A new level of spectacle.
And the 90s were just an explosion of theme resorts. Excalibur, the Castle, Luxor, the Pyramid with the Beam of Light. Bellagio in '98 wins next level of luxury art, shopping, those fountains.
Costing $1.6 billion. Over 1,000 water jets shooting hundreds of feet high. Incredible.
And building these often meant tearing down the old. The dunes, the sands, the hacienda, famous implosions becoming spectacles in themselves, symbolizing that constant churn.
The architecture just kept getting more ambitious. The Stratosphere Tower, now the Strat, over 1,100 feet tall.
Tallest observation tower in the U.S. rides on top. The huge bronze lion at MGM Grand. And now the MSG Sphere opened in 2023.
Alongside the fun, Vegas made a huge strategic push to become a top convention city.
Leveraging that massive hotel inventory, what was that stat? 288 years to stay one night in every room.
Something like that. Plus huge meeting spaces like the convention center.
Yeah.
It works. Over 40 million visitors a year and a big chunk are for business. Events like CES, the big tech show, bring in hundreds of thousands. It's a serious business hub now, too.
And the food scene transformed. Celebrity chefs rushed in, opened high-end restaurants. It's a major culinary destination.
Which brings us back to shrimp. Over 60,000 pounds a day, more than the rest of the U.S. combined.
That's the stat. Kind of captures the sheer scale of consumption. It's mind-boggling.
The 90s also had that push towards being family-friendly. Remember circuses midway?
Yeah, that started way back in '68. But the 90s saw a bigger effort. Wet n Wild, theme parks at MGM Grand and Treasure Island.
Though some of those didn't last. The outdoor theme parks struggled. They shifted back to the adult focus later with what happens here stays here. But family stuff still exists, like the Adventure Dome.
And while the Strip boomed, you also had the rise of locals casinos, catering specifically to residents.
Right. Boyd Gaming, station casinos. Places like Palace Station, Samstown, Gold Coast First with a movie theater, offering different amenities, bowling, affordable food, a whole separate market. Some places near the Strip, like Rio or Palms, tried to appeal to both.
But maybe the biggest shift recently, something unthinkable just a couple of decades ago, is the arrival of Major League Pro Sports.
That really changed the game, didn't it? The leagues finally got over the Gambling Association, the Golden Knights NHL expansion team in 2017.
Incredible first season, made the finals, won the Stanley Cup in 2023, instant community fixture at T-Mobile Arena.
Then the Raiders moved from Oakland, NFL football and Allegiant Stadium, opened 2020, hosted the Super Bowl in 24.
Huge. And the WNBA's Aces moved here in 2018, won back-to-back titles. Plus, the Oakland A's baseball team got approval to relocate. New stadium planned on the Strip by 2028.
The economic impact is massive. Billions from sports tourism, thousands of jobs. It's a huge part of that diversification plan.
And alongside sports, maybe even more crucial long-term, is the push into technology, trying to build a more resilient economy beyond tourism.
And it's happening. Tech jobs are surging.
Reports show big growth, yeah, especially in areas like cybersecurity. Big investments from companies like Google building data centers. UNLV is developing a tech park aiming for thousands of jobs, billions in impact.
What kind of tech?
AI, software, cloud computing, health tech. Companies like Switch, with their huge data centers, are anchors. Plus, hosting major tech conferences helps build that ecosystem.
So, sports and tech. A deliberate strategy to broaden the economic base, attract different talent, make Vegas less vulnerable to tourism slumps. Still evolving.
Absolutely. And Vegas, beneath the strategy, is just full of these weird, wonderful, sometimes dark little details.
The flood tunnels underneath the city where hundreds of people live. The mole people.
Yeah, why that Shadow City. Over 200 miles of tunnels. A stark contrast to the Strip overhead.
Or being called Hawaii's ninth island because of the large Hawaiian community. And remembering prostitution is actually illegal in Vegas and Clark County.
And the infamous Black Book, the list of people banned from casinos, mob figures like Tony Spilotro were on it.
That story about the FedEx founder saving the company with a Vegas blackjack win. True or not, it's part of the lore.
And some darker footnotes, like that hospital deathbedding incident in 1980. Grim.
The scale is just nuts. 15 of the world's 25 biggest hotels, the Strip being the brightest spot from space.
Fremont Street's canopy with nearly 50 million LEDs. The Bellagio fountains collecting tons of coins for charity.
And using recycled gray water for those fountains, which is smart.
Casino history itself is quirky. The fictional Tangiers from Casino, the Silver Slipper hiring the first female dealers, Casino dice having sharp corners.
The Neon Museum saving those amazing old signs, that bizarre casino promo offering a free funeral with a jackpot.
Fruit symbols on slots coming from gum dispensers. The Las Vegas Club giving out sports cards. The whole culture of comping high rollers starting in the 50s.
And the mob stories persist. The Stardust being heavily skimmed. Tony Spilotro ending up buried in a cornfield.
The enduring rumor, totally unproven, of bodies in the Hoover Dam concrete. Bugsy Siegel's murder, never officially solved, but widely assumed a mob hit. The mob museum being in the actual courthouse where the Kefauver hearings happened.
Even science gets weird here. Spraying DDT from planes in the 50s. NASA astronauts training nearby for the moon landing.
The complex water recycling systems now. That failed 60s plan for a dome over the city. And now AI tracking players in casinos. Layers upon layers.
It's a city that's seen incredible highs and lows, including recent tragedies.
Right. The horrific mass shooting on October 1st, 2017 at the Route 91 Harvest Festival. Unimaginable tragedy. 60 lives lost.
And the Alpine Motel fire in 2019, the deadliest in city history, leading to needed safety changes.
Then COVID hit in 2020. Devastating for a city built on tourism.
The casino shut down completely, first time since JFK's funeral in '63.
Mayor Goodman famously pushed back, worried about the economic collapse. Unemployment skyrocketed, billions lost in revenue, a really tough period.
But even during the pandemic, construction didn't entirely stop. New resorts kept opening, circa downtown.
First new build there since 1980. Resorts World opened in 21, the $4.3 billion mega project. Fontainebleau finally opened in late 23 after nearly 2 decades. Durango Station in the Southwest Valley, too.
Plus other big projects. Area 15, the Convention Center expansion with the Loop Shuttle, and obviously the Sphere.
And a really interesting trend. Native American tribes becoming major players in the casino scene. The Mohegan tribe managing Virgin Hotels Casino.
San Manuel tribe buying the Palms outright, First Native owners. Hard Rock, owned by the Seminole tribe, taking over the Mirage.
Which is closing in 2024 for a complete rebuild as a Hard Rock property. That's huge. First Native operator right on the Strip.
And speaking of closings, the Tropicana shut down in April 24 after 67 years. Coming down later this year, partly for the new A's Stadium. First Strip implosion since 2016, end of an era.
But new connections are coming. High-speed rail to California finally started construction in 2024. Brightline West, service maybe by 2028.
Politically, a shift too. Shelley Berkeley elected mayor in 2024, ending that long Goodman dynasty.
And that bizarre, tragic incident on New Year's Day 2025, the Cybertruck explosion outside the Trump Hotel.
Driver died, apparently self-inflicted wound before the blast. Army Special Forces soldier, letters left behind, not terrorism, but some kind of political message, mental health issues. Just another strange, sad Vegas event.
And Vegas remains a huge draw for filming. Ocean's 11, Casino, CSI, The Hangover, right up to recent award winners.
Yeah.
The Neon Museum helps preserve that visual history.
Now, there are these massive proposals for actual movie studios from Sony and Warner Bros. Huge potential investments, but dependent on state tax credits. Could be another diversification path.
And we talked about the pro teams, but Vegas had sports history before that, too.
Oh, yeah. Boxing was huge for decades. Ali, Tyson, Mayweather, legendary fights, often at the MGM Grand Garden Arena.
And older venues like Sam Boyd Stadium for football, Thomas and Mack for basketball, Cashman Field for baseball hosted events for years.
Minor League Baseball's been here since '83, the Aviators, playing in that nice new ballpark in Summerlin now.
And racing. The Mint 400 off-road race, that weird Formula One race in the Caesars parking lot in the 80s, the big Speedway opening in '96 for NASCAR, and now F1 back on the Strip. So the infrastructure and history for hosting big events were there.
Finally, you can't talk Vegas without talking environment. Living in the desert dictates so much.
Water, obviously. The drought starting 2002 was a huge wake-up call. Vegas has actually done a remarkable job with conservation, cutting per-person use significantly. Still high compared to some cities, but impressive progress.
Extreme heat is just a reality. Grounding planes hitting 120 degrees recently.
And flash floods. Seems weird for a desert, but sudden storms can be dangerous. They've built a massive flood control system since the 80s that's made a big difference.
So managing water, heat, floods, it's just constant essential work.
Looking back, it's just this unbelievable arc. Desert Springs to railroad stop to dam gambling divorce boomtown.
Through the mob era, the corporate takeover, the entertainment evolution, and now this push into sports and tech.
The themes just jump out, don't they? Opportunism, calculated risks, that tension between Sin City and mainstream ambition, and this incredible relentless drive to adapt and reinvent.
It never stands still. It seems to use every crisis, every change as fuel for the next transformation.
So thinking about all this constant chase for the bigger, the brighter, the newer. Here's a thought. Is Las Vegas maybe the ultimate embodiment of American ambition, that blend of hard-nosed practicality and pure fantasy, always pushing against the limits?
Or with this latest push into sports and tech, is it finally shedding that Sin City image? Or is that past just another layer in this incredibly complex, contradictory identity that Vegas somehow manages to hold together?
Something to ponder. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll catch you next time on Seeking History.